Dean Brennan's tweet really stood out. I know many of us were anticipating a decline in viewership since Caitlin Clark has been out due to injury, but I don't think all of us were anticipating the entire WNBA to be down. How much does it hurt the WNBA when Caitlin Clark is out? It is devastating to the WNBA, she told me. One player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? While golf did occasionally decline sharply without Tiger, the WNBA is in a terrible financial rut and is powerless to stop their entire empire from collapses. Without Caitlin Clark playing, demonstrating once more how this league has learned nothing about safeguarding the one player who brought them from obscurity to prominence. This is the tale of a league that keeps failing while its star player is hurt on the sidelines, and how their unyielding refusal to recognize that reality is costing them millions of dollars every day. The data is there, and we saw that the WNBA's viewership fell by more than 50% during the 5 games Caitlin missed earlier in the season. Not just for the Fever, but for the entire league in this era of when Caitlin Clark was sidelined with a quad injury on May 24th, the harsh reality of the league's reliance on one player was made public. Now that she is out again with a groin injury, who knows when we will see a recurrence of what happened? Manufactured drama and social media controversy facts have become as rare as sold-out WNBA games without Clark. Jump to her groin. Probably as a result of compensation, but you have to be careful because if you try to rush her recovery from this injury as well, you're entering a dangerous area where a very serious injury could occur. This is what Indiana Fever is, and Caitlin needs to avoid it as much as possible. If it means that she will be out for 3 weeks, indicates that she will not be present at All-Star. Therefore, the WNBA's nationally televised audience fell by an incredible 55%, with games involving the Indiana Fever seeing a 53% decline in viewership from an average of 1 when Clark performed. There were 81 million spectators, but without her, there were only 847,000. This is where the narrative begins. It gets utterly absurd. And by absurd, we mean predictably disastrous for a league that doesn't learn from its own mistakes. Clark went down and the WNBA's overall ratings have fallen by more than 55%. Guess what, guys? Caitlin Clark is the WNBA player who suffered a left quad strain in May. Since then, national TV viewership has dropped by 55%. Prior to the injury, her team's average was 1, while Caitlin Clark was busy doing what she does best, packing stadiums to full and shattering television rating records. There were 81 million viewers, nearly 2 million since her injury, but less than 850,000. It seems that when you have a player that is solely accountable for 26 goals, the WNBA was too busy doing what they do best to safeguard their most important asset, 5% of all WNBA revenue. Therefore, it seems sense to allow rivals to freely attack her while scolding everyone about the league is concerned about basketball plays because this is a very important season for the WNBA. At the end of this season, the WNBA will enter into CBA negotiations, and if those talks go well, all of the players in the WNBA will have a much better chance of earning significantly more in their next contract. That's one thing to consider when you start thinking about because of the way the media and the WNBA have treated Caitlin Clark and her fans. Many people stopped watching when she was hurt. They are boycotting the league because they don't want to watch any other teams or players. Whether they like these players or not, this exact scenario has happened before. And it's particularly fascinating, by which I mean deeply infuriating, that the league doesn't seem to be able to learn from its own past. The WNBA has seen its revenue and ratings plummet when its biggest star is hurt before. It's like watching someone touch a hot stove and get burned. Reach for it again right away, saying they had no idea what would happen. What's really worrying about this is that just 1 month into the regular season, Caitlin Clark has already missed time due to 2 injuries. The first was a left quad strain, which is obviously concerning because if you're already only sincerely hope that the Fever keeps her out for a while because you don't want her to have any more long-term injuries and be more vulnerable to them. If you're enjoying it, please subscribe. The financial destruction has been swift and brutal because you don't want to be that player who is constantly hurting embedded Anthony Davis. The average ticket price across Clark's missed games dropped from $1,370 to $80. A startling decrease that shows who really generates interest in these league road games that have been moved to larger arenas. Fever games have seen a 71% drop in attendance, with some tickets going from $860 to just $250. The Chicago Sky vs. Fever rematch, one of the season's most anticipated games, saw ticket prices plummet from $210 to $95 in order to meet the demand for Clark tickets. The matchup, which previously drew two, is now having trouble filling venues that would have been crowded with her presence. It's one of the most viewed WNBA games ever, with 25 million viewers, but without Clark, it's just another game that casual fans don't care to watch. Well done, WNBA. Your numbers will decrease by 55 to 60% once more. And I think the WNBA has one of the most outspoken critics of the WNBA's treatment of its star player. Caitlin Clark. Christian Brennan is a seasoned sports journalist whose upcoming book on her game, Caitlin Clark and the Revolution in Women's Sports, promises to reveal the league's shortcomings. The WNBA has yet to live up to the standards Brennan set after yet another incident. People are watching more than ever before where opponents targeted Clark, and this is what they see. Brennan's criticism gets right to the core of the issue. The league has statistics indicating that Clark alone attracts over half of its TV viewers, yet they still permit her to get cheap shots and hard fouls that have no other purpose than to try to scare their biggest rival. As big a deal as Tiger was in men's golf, he did, and his absence affected the ratings, but nothing like that. And Michael Jordan's absence might have affected the ratings by, say, 5 percentage points or something. It's like watching a restaurant owner let patrons harass the chef whose food is the only reason people come to the place. Like this. You can make a compelling argument, and I will, that no single athlete is more significant to their sport, tour, or whatever circuit they play on than Caitlin Clark is to the WNBA. The pattern has grown so predictable that it is frustrating that opponents who appear more interested in making statements than in playing fouls frequently foul Clark. 5. Of the 30 flagrant fouls in basketball that the league handed out in 2024 were against Clark, and the Chicago Sky were accountable for 80% of those flagrant fouls. When Clark reacts to the physical play, she is criticized for being too aggressive, and when she doesn't react, she is criticized for being soft. The league has created a no-win situation, and one despite the Clark-driven spike in popularity. Without her on the court, the league was already predicted to lose $50 million this season. These losses are increasing at an alarming rate as television ratings plummet, merchandise sales slow, and attendance figures return. Meanwhile, the financial impact is still devastating not just the Fever but the entire WNBA ecosystem. I'm not even sure where to start, man. I hope Caitlin Clark is doing well. I'd like to know when this injury even occurred because, let's be honest, she had a quad injury. Caitlin Clark, by the way, hadn't missed a game since she was about 19 years old. She was in college or something. Now she has a groin injury that we've never seen before. We've never seen Caitlin Clark shoot the ball this poorly in the last 3 games. She's like 1 for 20s or something on threes. I'll say that she's been injured and is playing through. The most damning part of the whole situation, is that it was entirely preventable. Clark entered the league as a humble rookie who the league could have welcomed her, protected her, and used her fame to elevate the entire sport, but instead, they let jealousy and small-time politics ruin what should have been a celebration of women's basketball. She handled criticism with remarkable grace and maturity for someone who was only 22 years old. Corporate sponsors, who made millions of dollars based on the growth driven by Clark, are now wondering if their investments were wise. This situation highlights a fundamental issue with the WNBA's positioning, as the league appears to be torn between wanting to be taken seriously as a professional basketball league, and you can't have it both ways. Professional leagues protect their stars and uphold competitive integrity, while high school drama clubs create controversy and hope someone takes notice. One thing I respect about Caitlin is that she's tough and a warrior. I'm sorry, but I didn't see many female basketball players like her. The comparison to other professional sports leagues is glaring and embarrassing. Can you imagine if the NBA permitted players to spend months attempting dirty plays against LeBron James while claiming it was? The WNBA seems perfectly happy to allow this destructive pattern to continue, seemingly believing that any attention is good attention. The league would shut down a competitive basketball game like that right away and suspend players more quickly. then you could say flagrant foul. The league's failure to protect Clark has created a toxic environment where fans are refusing to, when a league's fans are refusing to. Your own fans say they won't attend games without your biggest star because they don't trust that the games will be fairly officiated. You have a serious credibility problem that extends far beyond ratings and revenue. I think the physicality in all of this is the reason why they no longer watch other WNBA games, because they no longer trust the competitive integrity of the sport. I believe that all of this is wearing you down and having an effect, and all you are doing is hurting yourself because the numbers will continue to decline. And believe me when I say that when it comes time for that collective bargaining agreement, they will point to this and ask, well, how can we give you guys all this money? What if she gets hurt? This situation is even more frustrating because the WNBA has had numerous chances to change its direction, but each time they have failed. The events involving Clark should have served as a warning to the league to set clear guidelines regarding players. The irony is that Clark's injury, the very thing the league should have been trying to prevent, has given the clearest evidence of her value to the organization. The 55% drop in viewership isn't subtle yet, but each incident has been met with the same tired responses about basketball plays and letting the players play instead of protection and competitive integrity. This is unmistakable proof that the WNBA has not learned its lesson. League officials continue to claim that players should be allowed to be physical and that competitive balance is important, as if hard fouls and dirty plays are somehow necessary for the sport. They also continue to treat ordinary basketball plays involving Clark as serious incidents while ignoring real dangerous plays against her every day because of the way they play the game. I love the WNBA and I love the way they play the game, but we're really watching because Caitlin Clark is watching. And if I keep bumping her and knocking her down, she might get a concussion. You could actually hurt her for 2 weeks. She was out for about 5% of the game because of a hamstring injury. The audience was low, but when she returns, there are roughly 3 million viewers. Now, let me tell you something that you learn growing up in the neighborhood. Always protect the money. You keep hurting her, and even after she leaves for a year or 2, no one will watch it. If no one watches how you guys are going to make and generate money, the solution to this crisis isn't complicated. But it means that the WNBA makes some difficult choices about the type of league they wish to be. If they want to be recognized as a legitimate professional basketball organization, they must begin to act as such, set clear rules for player protection, and enforce them consistently. They must also stop letting fabricated scandals overshadow the game of basketball. Most importantly, they must acknowledge that their biggest stars, particularly those who pack arenas and drive TV ratings, should be shielded from harassment and targeting that only serves to create drama on social media. The continued decline in viewership, attendance, and revenue without Clark is a sobering reminder of this. The WNBA averaged just 555,000 viewers this season without Clark, far lower than last year's average of 670,000. These figures reflect a return to the pre-Clark era of empty arenas and pointless games that no one outside of diehard fans bothered to watch. When I walked to the game, I noticed something that the media doesn't show. Thousands of children wearing what are known as Gill kits. Where were the Dylan Clark jerseys? Were they Fever jerseys? Were they Iowa jerseys? Wherever she played, it was whatever she played, and that's what impressed me more. Did that. It wasn't just Caitlin because of her play style, but it wasn't what we were. It wasn't adults. It was parents bringing their children and their friends, and the seats were occupied by children, and that's what they don't understand. The most tragic part of the whole situation is that it didn't have to happen this way. Instead, the WNBA has built a house of cards that collapses the moment their biggest draw leaves the court. Until the WNBA learns to protect and promote the players who actually drive interest in their league, they will be unable to capitalize on Clark's popularity and use it to build a sustainable foundation for long-term growth. Keep going through these boom-bust cycles where the presence or absence of a single player determines whether or not anyone pays attention. The question is whether the WNBA will eventually learn to protect their golden goose, or if they will keep making mistakes until they've completely wasted what could have been Clark's popularity has given rise to, as far as we can tell. The why, suddenly, the league has no money. Gaining common sense.